So I'm known by Michael Foust. That was awesome. Right here in the front row.
Winning the Film Impact Award is a massive nod from the audience. What has been the most moving reaction you've received from a viewer who found personal healing through watching I Can Only Imagine?
I like this kid. Oh my gosh. You want a job? You know, the cool thing with this one, I was at a event the other day, and you know, when you get to the end of it, you kind of have tunnel vision. You're tired and exhausted, and it's all over in a blur. But there was a woman that had health health problems for about 20 years, and she hunted me down in this at this event, and she had tears in her eyes, and she just said, you know, I always heard about the faith that it took to be healed, but I've had a lot of faith to walk through what I've done for 20 years. And she said this film for the first time made me feel seen, that God's in the fire with me. And I just think that there's hope on both sides. There's hope when God heals, and there's hope when he says no. And this film kind of explores, you know, what happens if God says it's not going to work out the way you want. So, yeah.
I have a story I'd like to share because it was really profound. I showed the film to 300 women at the Love Lady Center, Birmingham, Alabama. And one lady was at the back of the auditorium after all the other women had left. They were in the lobby. And we asked, why are you still there? And she said, because she was waiting to see the movie through the entire end credits till the very, very end. And she said, because I tried to kill myself a week ago.
Wow.
And this movie gave me hope and told me that Jesus wants me to live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great question. Back there, Mike.
You've said that films can be like a Romans road worldwide. Expand on that, what you meant by that in terms of the power you believe movies can have around the world.
The Romans road was something that was established in the days of Jesus for commerce and for war. It was paved all over the world for you to be able to travel wherever you went, and they were there for ease of doing business and ease of, you know, controlling the empire. And so, you know, it would be easy for people in that society to say that these, you know, things were used for people for greed or for power, and that there's something not spiritual about it. But the thing that allowed the gospel to explode around the world by this group of fishermen was all the roads were already laid. And so when the disciples were radicalized by the resurrection, they just blew it out around the world, and persecution sent it around the world quickly. And so I think for us, you know, I think as Christians, a lot of times it's easy to be victims and to say that our voice was taken away from us or that we lost our seat at the table. But we gave it up. You know, we led the arts for 2,000 years. In 1965, we decided that Christianity didn't belong in the arts. And the Catholic Church actually ran the MPAA then. It was called the Legion of Decency. And we kind of gave up our seat at the table and said that theaters were evil. And so as a result, it atrophied. But now that it's back, and Cindy is an expert in international, but these films, now that the studios are taking them seriously, they have output deals that are already laid around the world, just like the Romans Road. They're there in place. And so when you put out a film here and it does well domestically, it goes on autopilot around the world. The gospel goes out. So there's places like in China or in Saudi Arabia that I'll be arrested in the streets if we preach that message. But in the theater, they're paying for us to bring it there. And so one of my favorite stories that I heard was on the first Imagine, and Cindy, you know, was the one that was in charge of putting that out around the world. There was a story of a lady and her son that went to the movie theater, and they're at the theater, and at the end when the credits rolled, there was a woman sitting by herself at the end of the row, and she was in tears. And she said, are you guys Christians? The woman and her son said, yes, we are. Are you? She says, I'm not, but whatever the heck just happened to Dennis Quaid in that film, I needed my life. And then she knelt down on the aisle and gave her life to Christ. That was in Australia. I've never been to Australia. It's the Romans Road. So.
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey to see what God has done. These movies were literally birthed by God. Mustard seeds is how they started. And God brought me to Andy Erwin, and Andy and Kingdom Story Company have been the most amazing blessing. Kingdom Story Company was birthed on the first Imagine, and God just really used the first movie to just open up the marketplace on a whole other level. And so to be able to have done this movie now with Andy the second one, based on Even If, Bart's life story. Tim Timmons has been a blessing beyond words.
Right here in the front row, and then you. Go ahead.
So faith-based films used to be very niche.
Yeah.
And your career has brought us great movies. You all have inspired, but also shown transformation.
Right.
How would you say that that is changing today, whether you're virtually helping shape culture and showing that there are other ways to look at life?
Yeah. You know, it's still got its challenges, but it's a different game now. People say, you know, the studio system is against kind of stories like this, and it's not. It's a business. And if you prove that it can make money, they will let you do anything you want. And so, you know, when we did the movie Jesus Revolution, and my brother directed that, and with Brent McCorkle, my co-director on this one, and I produced it with Kevin and a bunch of others. You do the next one. Oh, that's a scoop. Sorry, I'm gonna shut up. When we took that to Lionsgate, we thought we'd get a lot of pushback because of the gospel message. And they got to the end of it, they said, guys, this is the most all-inclusive thing we've ever seen. And I said, what you call inclusion as a Christian, we call evangelism. It's an invitation to broken and hurting people to find hope and faith. And he's like, I think we're okay with that evangelism thing. Keep doing that. And so there's a wide open appetite within the studio system to connect with audiences, and they're letting us tell our stories. Got time for one more. I want to get out of the way. I don't want to hog the platform.
Okay, so what are some stories or movies that each of you or one of you has had the same kind of impact as, I can only imagine, has?
Passion of the Christ. The Passion of the Christ. It was, you know, I talk about that time where it atrophied. And there was a bunch of us that were trying to get in the game around the same time. We're all music video directors, independent film people. You know, Cindy's been in it along with us for a long time, 30 years. So we're all kind of scratching it out, very tribal. But when we saw the Passion of the Christ, and I remember sitting in the theater that I was in, it was at the Summit Theater in Birmingham, Alabama. I was on the row 12 on the left. And I sat there in the theater, and it got to the end, and it was silent. And I just sat there, and I was like, it's a Renaissance painting. I've never seen any kind of Christian art like this before. And so there was a lot of us that inspired us to get in the game, that, okay, as Christians, you can represent yourself that way. Now, none of us had the skills of Mel Gibson. We were all struggling to scratch it out. But in the midst of that, there was a group of us that all started around the same time. You know, there was Dallas Jenkins, there was Alejandro Montverde, the one who did Sound of Freedom, my brother who's gone on to do House of David, there's Devon Franklin, John Gunn, there's a bunch of others that we were all just struggling with. Phil Cunningham that did the David animated movie today that is a brilliant filmmaker. And so in that, we all kind of have struggled through it for years, and we've all began to find our voice at the same time. But it really started for us with the Passion of the Christ. And I'm so excited about the sequels. And as a plug for Lionsgate, you know, but it's going to be special. But I really sat in the theaters like, oh, as a Christian, you can do this. And so we've all been chasing that since. And so God's opened more and more doors to see people. Okay, one more. Go ahead.
Dr. Cassandra Brunson with The Calling, and would love to be able to hear a little bit in your clips, and I can only imagine too, we see a lot of Red Rocks Amphitheater, and being from Colorado, knowing the significance, being the youngest female actually to put on an event there.
Wow.
Would love to hear the impact of Red Rocks, what it meant in the film, and also just personally.
Well, Cindy, how did you feel about Red Rocks when we first said we wanted to film there?
Okay, first of all, getting to film at Red Rocks, total miracle, okay? Because we were told that it was booked for 2 years. And Bart happened to call, and we only had a 6-week shooting schedule. And Bart called, right? And somehow, some way, one day popped up, perfect date in our schedule. But they said, in order to make this work, you also have to, you know, do a concert. So we literally went in, you had like 5 hours, something like, it was crazy. We're miraculous. Then I'm thumbing through as a producer, you know, thinking about the almanac, like, well, it's Colorado, how many days? I mean, it's April. Bart had told me, hey, there was a time I was there was 2 feet of snow. And, you know, so we were going through all these kinds of, you know, potential challenges, and we're just praying, Lord. But I'll tell you, we got up there, And it was the most perfect day, and I'll never forget, and I'll just show this person, I'll turn it over to you. I'm down there, stage right at the bottom, 10,000 people. This place was packed to the rafters. We told them that we were shooting a movie as well as the concert. Everybody was vested in this, and I just remember looking up above the rocks into the sky. I just started weeping because I just saw the Holy Spirit just dropping over everyone in this production. So, just grateful.
I'd agree with that. We felt like it was the only place in the world that would have the cinematic scale and kind of feel like a holy cathedral. I mean, it's like God moved those rocks in place and kind of created a cathedral for himself there. It's amazing. And so, you know, when we got to the big chorus on Even If, the audience just decided in unison. We didn't have a lot of time to film at all. We filmed with a bunch of cameras. You had to do a few takes. And when it got to that point, the whole audience stood at their feet in unison. And it was like it was a holy moment. And so I can't imagine a place better than that in the movie. So
Yeah, we
anyway.
did not tell them to stand up.
Yeah, it was
They
God there.
literally, you're watching in the movie, one of the completely true anointed moments in movie history, where the Holy Spirit moved everybody up. We didn't tell them to do that.
Well, I know there's other people behind us, but we just want to say, appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.